This is the start of Podcast 7 for Chapter 5, Determining Generic Levels of Skill Proficiency. The levels of skill proficiency provide a way to assess the abilities of entire classes of children. If you observe a class and 20 of the 24 students in the class are at the pre-control level, it's likely that you're going to start most activities or tasks or in your lessons at the pre-control level. The assessment of children's skills in terms of these levels is a basis for planning appropriate activities in your lessons. They apply only to skill themes, not movement concepts, because skill themes are physical skills and movement concepts are cognitive concepts. They also serve in matching the difficulty or the challenge of a task to the ability of the students in your classes. There are 4 levels of skill proficiency, starting with pre-control, then moving up to control, then moving to utilization, and lastly proficiency. The levels of skill proficiency are task related. In other words, a child at the utilization level in one skill may be at the control level in another. In other words, they might be very good at kicking in soccer, but they could be not so good in throwing and catching. Age is not an indicator of the ability for any skill level, and therefore it does not form a part of the GLSP concept. These are some very short descriptions of the generic levels of skill proficiency. At the pre-control movement, at the pre-control level, oops movements or surprise movements are done sometimes. It's unable for students are usually unable to consciously control or replicate a particular movement. At the control level, it's characterized by intense concentration without distraction. The body appears to respond more accurately to intentions, and movements are increasingly similar or repetitive. At the utilization level, skills are used in a variety of contexts, and movements are automatic and more reflexive than at the control level. At the proficiency level, movements are pretty much automatic and dynamic. Movements are effectively used in unpredictable situations, such as in using open skills. At the pre-control level, skills are characterized by inconsistency. Successful skill performances are rather often accidental rather than intentional. At the control level, movements are often involve intense concentration. They're also more repetitive and more continuously done. At the utilization level, the skill level and movements are more reflexive and require less concentration. And of course, at the proficiency level, students are usually challenged by dynamic and unpredictable situations. Using the skill levels in teaching, we look at a hypothetical example representing a child's varying level of proficiency in different skills. In other words, if you looked at this chart for a particular child, it shows that they're at the pre-control level in leaping, they're at the utilization level at throwing and catching, they're at the pre-control level again for transferring weight, they're at the control level for balancing, and they're back up to the utilization level for striking with a bat. You can see how one child has many different skill levels according to the skills that they're practicing. As a general rule, because we don't go by grade level to determine skill level, but pre-K to grade 1 students generally are in the pre-control level and or control level for most skills. That's not to say that there won't be some students who have lots of opportunities to practice outside of school in soccer or basketball or whatever that might be better at throwing and catching than most of the students in their grade level. That means basically that's why we're trying to look at the levels of skill proficiency. In grades 4 and 5, generally skill levels will range from pre-control to utilization, with possibly a few at proficiency. It's unreasonable to expect children to advance from control to proficiency level if they practice skills only during physical education classes, unfortunately. After evaluating the general level of skill proficiency for each class, teachers provide appropriate tasks and activities or plan for them for the skill levels of the students. The task can be modified to meet student skills levels through the techniques of teaching by invitation. In other words, the teacher would invite students as a group, if they're all at a higher level than the other students in the class, to practice a different task that might be more challenging for them. Or they might change the task within the class so that some students are practicing one part of a task a certain way and trying to teach the other students about the content of a skill using another task at the same time. Through practice and more likely experience, teachers learn which tasks are most effective and interesting to children at various grades and skill levels. Planning helps teachers choose tasks through moving up and or down the progression spiral. A task is appropriate when students are highly successful and seek to continue practicing. In other words, they are not bored, the task might be too easy, and they're not frustrated, the task might be too hard. Choosing the right level to practice at in your classes for most of the students in your class and trying to meet students on different levels is your difficulty as a physical education teacher. You're never going to get a class, as I've said before, that will have the same exact skill level for every single skill that you're going to be teaching them. So it's important to try to determine what skill level they are at and use the progression spirals in the book and the tasks associated with them to plan your lessons. This is the end of podcast number 7.